The amazing thing is this has everything to do with America, because as we thought we could drive out God, and it opened the door for these spirits. It's been going in a pagan direction. It's like a repossession, some things that are just irrational. There was one guy who actually did this, and his name was Friedrich Nietzsche. He was a German philosopher, and the amazing thing is that these kings and queens serve as prototypes or templates of actual American leaders in this last period up to now, one after the other. I mean, from Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, I mean, even Osama bin Laden's in this. 3 years later to the day comes a calamity, 9/11.
Wow.
And even the very hour it would begin. I mean, that's how exact this is.
Why do you think God would do that? You know, especially for America today.
Troy, you're the only one I've ever been on a program that knew that. People don't know that. Her whole life has been following the pattern and mystery of this goddess.
There has been this rumor circulating. I've seen it all over the place. Signs in the heavens. You know, there's certain things that people are using to try to say and predict essentially this, either a rapture date or a second coming date.
There's an African pastor who said he had a vision where Jesus told him, either I'm coming back or I'm going to take you on September 23rd of 2025. This theory is based on Revelation 12, which talks about the woman and the child and the dragon. If we are here in the end times, we're here in this time, you know, it's because God appointed us to be. He chose it.
Hey y'all, this is Troy Black, and I've got my friend Jonathan Cahn with me today, and he's going to be talking about the mystery of the Avatar. So in this new book that he's recently released, he gives a warning to America, but also a hope for America. And he ties into this mystery some of the recent events and some of the political events over the last couple of years with Joe Biden, President Trump, Kamala Harris. This is not just a modern day mystery, it's an ancient mystery as well. We're going to be talking about the mystery of the Avatar, but a little while later in this video, we're also going to be talking about the rumor that's been just spreading around the internet. It's been going viral recently about a September 23rd rapture or second coming date. And so Jonathan's going to weigh in on that in a little while.
The Avatar is literally going to be everywhere right now. It just came out. It looks like this. If you just go online or Amazon or wherever you get books, if you see this, make sure it's not the movie. And there are other kind of books with that title. So make sure if it says that, The Return of the Ancients and The Future of America, Jonathan, you'll have it. Get it for people in your life too, who need to get saved or need to wake up. Also, as far as the ministry, it's hopeoftheworld.org. It's a ministry to get the word out, the gospel to the nations, has all my teachings, has compassion projects, but you'll get free gifts and you see all my teachings there and much more. So if you go to hopeoftheworld.org, I don't know about you, Troy, but there's a lot of fake Jonathan Cahn sites. I don't know if you deal with that. A lot of it. It's crazy.
I've tried to crack down on my end, but I've seen them. I've seen the fakes out there, and it's just crazy what people are doing with AI.
There's always been imitations, you know. I mean, ever since Satan, there's always imitations, you know.
So let's jump in. What is the Avatar going to reveal to us?
Yeah, well, the Avatar, it has to be the most explosive book I've ever written, and I've written some explosive books. This one, it's really pulling away the veil behind everything that's been happening, and behind it is a whole nother realm, and it's kind of a mind-boggling realm. It's kind of an unbelievable realm, but it's real with ancient mysteries behind modern events. The spiritual realm, a realm of forces or quote gods, which we mean by space spirits, and I mean everything from the assassination attempt on Trump to the outcomes of the elections determined by this template. Really, there's a template in there that behind each of leaders in America, there's an ancient template from the Bible that follows exactly, that has exact time. So that God has amazing mysteries, that we are in the midst of an amazing time.
Does this in any way tie into some of the other books you've written? Because I've read several of your books now, and I know I've seen a pattern and a theme there.
Interesting.
Where it is. So it's kind of like the pattern continuing to play out.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the Return of the Gods is kind of taking it to another level. The paradigm is continuing on. So it's like all these things converging, and then things that I've never, that are like just way out there explosive.
Right. Yeah, man. I love how the Lord obviously helps you to put these books together. Because there's when I'm reading your books, I'm like, there's no other way you could have gotten all these details together.
That's it.
What do the gods, and obviously we're talking about false gods, so we're talking about evil spirits, but what do they have to do with the modern world and America?
Well, the Bible says that Jesus said that a that a man was delivered of the spirit, demonic, and yet he stayed empty instead of being filled with God. And the spirit comes back, finds him empty, brings 7 other spirits. He's repossessed. And people say, well, okay, that's about a guy. No, he ultimately says, so it will be with this generation.
Wow.
So the thing is that the amazing thing is this has everything to do with America and the West, because when the gospel came into the world, it drove out the power of Jesus, drove out the gods, drove out the spirits. It was like a mass exorcism. And that's what made the West unique. But the warning is that any nation or culture that has been delivered of these things has known God. If it should empty itself of God, what was cast out of it will come back into it. And so what we are witnessing in the last half century in America, as we thought we could drive out God, and it opened the door for these spirits or these lowercase gods to actually transform our culture. I mean, watch, it's been going in a pagan direction. It's like a repossession, some things that are just irrational. You say, like, how could people do this? And it was going to this point. Now there's a change recently, a change in this, but that's where it is. So it's a dangerous thing for any, quote, Christian civilization to turn away from God.
Yeah, so I've read even some like atheist historians talking about how nothing has had an impact on civilization in general as much as the gospel of Jesus Christ has throughout throughout the centuries. Yeah. And so you're talking about that same effect, but it's kind of like the opposite. It's like once you remove that, what effect does that have on the culture? And one of the specific examples you use in this book, it has to do with the Olympics. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this was like a manifestation of everything we just said. And this opening Olympics, the opening ceremony, they had the Last Supper, but they had, instead of the apostles, they had men in drag gyrating. And then instead of the body and blood of Messiah, representing his body, the food, they have a plate of food. They take off the cover, and it's a pagan god replacing Jesus. And the pagan god was Dionysus. Now, it's interesting. So at the beginning, Jesus drove out the power of the gospel, drove out Dionysus and all but now it's replacing it backwards. And the thing is, there was one guy who actually did this, and his name was Friedrich Nietzsche. He was a German philosopher. He's the one who said God is dead, wrote books saying get rid of Christianity, get rid of all. But he actually adored Dionysus. And it said that Dionysus would drive his worshipers insane. I mean, frenzies. Well, Nietzsche ends up going insane. Wow. And instead of writing his name Nietzsche, Frederick writes his name Dionysus, as if he was taken over by the spirit. By that spirit. And the thing is, his writings went on, and a guy picks it up whose name is Adolf Hitler, and the Third Reich. And they they made him their philosopher, and they did what he said. They exchanged Jesus for paganism, and look what happened.
Wow. I mean, as Jesus said, wisdom is made known by her fruit. So it's like you're going to see the results eventually. And it's like, if you want to look at the results of his ideology, look at how his life turned out. Look at what happened. That's insane. That's so crazy. It makes sense. It makes sense with the pattern we've seen in the word and then also in the world. So you write about like the mystery of the kings. So how is an ancient biblical template behind modern American leaders? And I, as I mentioned this earlier, I've seen you play back to this pattern several times in your books. Yeah. And I've noticed you always deliver. It's never like an empty. I don't know if anyone's told you that, but it's like it's always like, okay, you got me. Like that was good.
Thank you. Yeah.
But how does this play into that pattern?
Yeah. Well, and the amazing thing is, and you said it, Troy, that it keeps unfolding. I mean, I'm amazed because it just keeps happening. Well, for those who don't know, this is a template. And it's one of the things that the Avatar takes forward is that when Israel was turning away from God, they had kings and queens who were part of this fall. And the amazing thing is that these kings and queens serve as prototypes or templates of actual American leaders in this last period up to now, up to this very moment. Wow. And the thing is that behind each one, a president, a leader, is one of these ancient kings. And the thing is, or queens, and the thing is that it not only reveals the nature of the person, it reveals the events of their life. It reveals the timing of that. In some cases, it reveals dates that happen, and it reveals how long each one will have on the national political stage. I mean, one after the other. I mean, from Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. I mean, even Osama bin Laden's in this. And the thing is that I'll give you a quick example. In the template, 3 years after a king confesses to a scandal, a particular king who actually is the prototype behind Bill Clinton, there comes a calamity on the land. And the thing is, an enemy strike. Well, Clinton then has a scandal and he makes a confession on a particular day. 3 years later to the day comes a calamity, 9/11.
Wow.
And even the very hour it would begin. I mean, that's how exact this is. And this is going to lead up to where we are now because it has not stopped.
So I have a question that is not in my notes here, but why do you personally think that? Because I would call that a parallel, right? And you've used many different terms to describe it, but why do you think God would do that? Especially for America today.
I think it's a great question. I think first of all, God knows every event. When he writes the Bible, he knows every word of the Bible, and he knows every event that's going to happen. So he actually can create parallels or weave things together, just like in our life. Sometimes we open up the Bible and something jumps out, and it's specifically for your life, specific. So that's one. But also that it says these things were written for our edification. And so the thing is that also that it gives revelation of where we are, and because the story in the Bible is giving revelation. Good and evil, what's happening to the nation, what's serving the purpose of God, what is opposing it. So it's really giving clarity to where we are. And it's also saying that God is God and God is in control of all things.
And that brings a hope into the picture, because when you're reading the stories in the Bible, you're like, well, I know how this ends, so I have hope, right? But it's like, we don't know how it ends now, but then when you start to see that God is still working today the same way that he was then, then it brings the hope back into the picture. So earlier, you mentioned Donald Trump. How does he play into this mystery?
What's happening in the template is that, and again, has specifics with the kings and leaders, but overall, the culture is turning away from God. And the house of Ahab, that was an evil king, his house is basically ruling the nation, and his sons are going on. And if it kept going, it would have sealed the nation away from God. It would have been apostasy, judgment, sealed it. And the thing is, with America, we were recently at this point where this agenda, which is anti-biblical agenda, was taking over virtually every institution of our culture. So very recently, I mean, not Hollywood, music, educational system, the Department of Justice, the army, the corporate world, where people were afraid to say things like, there is male and female. You could lose your job. I mean, crazy. Yeah. Well, that was like the house of Ahab. But in the template, God has a surprise. And God had a surprise. And the surprise is the man called Jehu. And Jehu is the template of Donald Trump, or the prototype, and not that he knows it, but Jehu was, number one, he was wild, he was unpredictable, he never knew what he was going to do next, say next. He was a fighter, he wasn't a politician, fighter. He comes like a storm on the nation. Well, Donald Trump, every single one of them. But also, something, Troy, and when I wrote this first, I didn't even realize it. Remember, Donald Trump began his political career coming down that staircase, that stairway, and then he begins it. I didn't even know Jehu begins on top of the stairs, and he comes down the stairs, and then he begins his race.
Wow.
So, and then Jehu makes an alliance with the religious conservatives of the land. So does Donald Trump with Christians. Jehu has an agenda to drain the swamp. Donald Trump. Jehu also, in order to become king, he had to prevail against the nation's former first lady, who is in this case was Hillary Clinton. In that case, it was Jezebel. Hillary Clinton was on the national stage, political stage, with her husband for 22 years. On her own, in public office, and then running for president, totals 14 years. Well, Jezebel was on the national stage with her husband, 22 years, on her own, 14 years. And so everything, and even this determined the last three elections, because Donald Trump, if he's the template of Jehu is that Jehu first contends against the sitting king. Then a woman rises up with an anti-biblical agenda, and he contends against her, and he wins. Well, 2016, he contended with Obama, then Hillary Clinton, and he wins. In 2020, that wasn't the template. It wasn't the template of Jehu. But in 2024, the template of Jehu resurrects, because now he first contends against the sitting king, which is Joe Biden. He defeats him in that, just like Jehu defeated the king, he defeats him in that debate. And then a woman rises, template of Jehu, with an anti-biblical agenda, and so he prevails. That's why in one he prevailed, the second he didn't, and then he prevailed again.
So how does this play into? You've kind of talked about Joe Biden a little bit. Are there some other
Well,
examples of this mystery playing out there?
well, let me give you an example of Joe Biden that's even deeper. It's like, one. In Joe Biden, there is the main prototype is a king named Jehoram, and Jehoram he's a weak king. In the reign of Jehoram, you've got a big problem is border incursions, people crossing the borders into the nations unchecked.
Wow.
Another thing of that is, I don't know if you remember this, but another thing is that at the beginning of Jehoram's reign, there's a disastrous military pullout, withdrawal from a foreign land. It was Edom. With Biden, it was Afghanistan.
Wow.
In the reign of Jehoram, the nation of Israel is invaded. When the invaders begin from what is now the Gaza Strip, they invade Israel. They take Israelis hostages back to Gaza in the reign of Biden.
Wow.
His reign is that. And there's so much to this, but I'll do one thing. Toward the end of his reign, the main issue with Jehoram is he becomes physically impaired, physically compromised. Joe Biden, the whole issue about his physical capability. And then at the end of his reign, he had one son left. His name was Ahaziah. He was youngest son. Well, Biden had one son left. His Hunter, his youngest son. Ahaziah, the name Ahaziah comes from Ahaz, which means to seize. Well, the name to seize becomes a word in Old German, Henten, thus the name Hunter.
Wow.
It's like, it's wild.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
That connection that's amazing. Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah. And then one of the things that it tells us what's happening right now is that when Jehu took the throne, you know what he did, Troy? And talk about what's happening now with Donald Trump. He set his agenda to purge the government of the house of Ahab. That's exactly what Donald Trump has been doing, to dismantle houses of Ahab. Well, Donald Trump has been a dismantler as well. And the thing is that because remember, Jehu was anointed to roll back the house of Ahab. And so what's happening with Trump, it's not about Trump, and we don't know if he knows but he is rolling back this agenda.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I'll share one more thing, so much, but one more thing about Trump, and that is that, I said that the template's so precise and so really stunning that it gives exact time period that someone is on the national political stage. Now with Trump, it's a little different because he was always on the stage, but not political. But so we'd say, like, when did it begin? What's the span that he entered the national political stage? Well, most people say 2016 or 2015, but it wasn't. People don't know this. Donald Trump actually was actually the candidate for president in the year 2000. It was called Trump 2000. He ran on the Reform Party. He actually won the California primary, and then they pulled out. Well, That's when he entered it. Well, his last year, his full year appointed for him, at least, will be the year 2028. Well, that's a 28-year span, easy to remember. Open the Bible. Wow. It says Jehu was on the national stage for 28
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's crazy. The Trump 2000. We did a film about him last year, so that's why. Yeah, we dove into all of that.
Troy, you're the only one I've ever been on a program that knew that. People don't know that.
Yeah, it was crazy. The fallout that happened after that, and how he switched to the Republican ticket and everything. Is a very interesting history there. Like I believe God was setting things up, as he went along. But how does this tie back into? Because you mentioned this tied back into the day of his birth. Is that true? Like that there's something connected there?
It will. Yeah. If it's okay with you, let me set up one thing, because it's going to make that be much more meaningful.
Okay, I'm skipping ahead, obviously.
Yeah, this is just one thing.
Yeah.
Because it talks about the avatar. What's an avatar? An avatar is in the belief, the pagan belief, is that it's someone who embodies the god or represents the god or is the living image of the god. In ancient times, you didn't just have gods, you had kings and queen who were considered pharaohs, were considered avatars of the gods. So if we're at the point where we've let these things in, could we be at the point where you actually have people who could, and even to vie for power? Because if a spirit can possess or rule a king, it can rule the kingdom. So could it have happened to America? Well, this is real key. There is in the concept of the avatar, the belief is, because it's from India, that there's one house, one family that particularly produces human avatars of gods, and that is the house of Brahman. From the house of Brahman was born Kamala Harris, from the house of the avatars. Her
Wow.
actually her maiden her Hindu name, her Hindu family name is Gopalin, which is named after an avatar. The avatar has to be linked to a god. She's given the name Kamala. Kamala is the name of an ancient goddess. Her
Wow.
middle name is Devi, which means the goddess. So it's Kamala the goddess. And I won't go into detail except one thing is that her whole life has been following the pattern and mystery of this goddess. And not that she knows, and we got to pray for everybody. We have no enemies. Pray for them. But it's amazing. And the thing is that here's another thing. There's a day called Sharad Purnima on the Hindu calendar where they celebrate, India celebrates this goddess. Well, when they're celebrating, on the day they were celebrating this goddess, Kamala Harris was born into the world.
Wow.
And they actually celebrate the goddess coming into the world while she comes into the world. And so as she came into the world, they're chanting Kamala across the world. And that day is also considered the birth of the goddess Kamala. And so Kamala is born on the birth of Kamala. So there's so much to this, but I'll say one thing. And this is going to lead to, we'll go to the birth of Donald Trump. But the thing is that, what's the sign of the avatar? America was made to be a nation under God and, governed by God. If she had won, just as a sign, if she had won, we would be a nation governed by one called goddess. In ancient times, they had images of the avatars, the pharaohs, the kings, and they would merge the face of the man or the woman into the imagery of the goddess. Well, just before Kamala Harris won the vice presidency, her family puts an image on the internet, and it's an image of her merged with a Hindu goddess.
Wow.
I mean, all over. One nation under goddess, And so that shows you, and so now let me go to your question. The other question is Donald Trump was also born. He was born on a linked to a holy day, but not a pagan holiday, on a biblical one. He was born on Friday, which ushers in the Sabbath. And so on the Sabbath, there's a scripture appointed for every Sabbath from ages past to be read on that day. That means there's a scripture for his birth, for the Sabbath of his birth. So what was it? They're reading it all over the world. At the end, in that passage, it says God commands to bring forth an instrument, a trumpet, a trump into the world.
Wow.
So all over the world, they're reading that. And what's a trump? A trump is a vessel. It doesn't have to know what it's doing. It's a vessel. A trumpet is loud, it's jarring, but it's used of God. Now, there's so much to it, but I just want to say that I'll say it to this. We had an election. If we pull away the veil, we had an election where you had one man named Trump or trumpet, and the other one named goddess, the goddess. And in the ancient Hebrew use of the trumpet, they would sound the trumpets to drive out the spirits or the gods. So Trump is actually being used to roll back this agenda of the gods in America. I mean, it's amazing, but it's there from his birth.
Wow. Yeah, that pattern is that's so detailed. It's crazy how God works these things together. We also mentioned the assassination attempt on Trump's life. So how does this tie into that?
Yeah, and we'll bring this to where we are. So yeah, the thing is that there was a way that God marked someone that he was going to use for his purposes. And it was when the candidate for the office of the priesthood, in order to become that, there was a certain ritual and ancient consecration, and for that person to be marked for God. And they were marked with blood. The blood had to touch the ear of the priest to be marked.
Wow.
Think of the assassination attempt. And that changed Trump. It had to touch the right ear, touches the right ear. Had to touch the tip of the right ear, touch it. Then it has to touch the hand. First thing he does is brings up his hand, touches the blood. Has to be the right hand. That's why it was the right hand. Had to be the right thumb. That's why it was the right thumb. And then it has to go to the feet. And the only way this can go to the feet has to be involved, is that the shoes of the candidate for the office of the priesthood have to be removed from his feet. Trump is pushed down to the floor and his shoes are removed where they were just taken off. He didn't know where they were. Wow. And the ceremony, there's so much to it, but the ritual was 7 days. So from the time the blood touches the right ear to the seventh day, on the seventh day, that person receives the vestments invested to begin to serve for the office of the priesthood for God. Well, if you count the Hebrew days from the time the blood touched, that was 1 day. Then sundown comes, that begins the next Hebrew day. Sundown, sundown, sundown. The seventh day begins Thursday night. Anything happen? Thursday night, Trump is standing before the world, and he is invested with a nomination to become president and serve in the office for God. So there's a reason for it. There's a reason.
Wow. So you're not saying that Donald Trump is a priest. That's not what you're saying. But you're
No,
talking
no.
about
It's
a parallel and
a
sort of like
vessel.
it's like it's a repeat. It's like a
Yeah, it's a vessel and an anointing and for a purpose. And
yeah.
yet we could say there could, what does the priest do? The priest is supposed to bring his nation to God. Could
Hmm.
there be something that God, Donald Trump has done all the other things, but the ultimate is God, because that's
Right.
what it brings it to. Because when you do all the other things, but you don't turn the nation to God, you missed it.
Yeah. But the purpose is the same. So you're
Yes.
talking about the purpose that God has anointed him for and other leaders for
Yeah.
is gonna point back to the same purposes that God had for the people at that time,
Yes.
the ones that were actually serving God. Yeah, that's amazing. This mystery is yeah, you're right. Explosive is the word for it.
Yeah. And
Man, I'm so excited about this book.
thank,
That's so cool.
Thank you, Troy. And this is, again, this is what it looks like. It's everywhere. The avatar is everywhere. If you go online right now, you'll see it. But pray, get it for people in your life too that need to be saved or need to be awakened. I will just say one thing, and I know we want to get to what's happening with the rapture, with this thing that's going on.
Yeah.
But one thing is that it brings it to the prophetic moment, which is real important, because what all these things point to is that we are in a window, because that had to do with Jehu, had to do with everything. We're in a window. God gave us a window. And the thing is that what's the window for? If we don't do anything, it's not about if we change the government, but we don't change people's hearts. The
Mhm.
unchanged hearts are going to change the government back, and,
Yeah.
and the gods will return. If we drive it out the agenda of the gods, but we don't put God's presence in there,
Mhm.
it's going to come back. So we have a moment now, and my encouragement to everybody, and this is what the avatar leads to. We have a call now. It's an incredible moment. We got a window for revival. I mean, as we have never seen. The thing is, if it's the window is there for God, if we don't use it, we don't know if we're going to have this window again. These things have been rolled back so the gospel can go forward. We got to do
Right.
everything we can to pray for revival as never before, preach the revival and the gospel as never before, and actually choose to live in revival as never before, because then it can begin. So we are at a crucial moment, and we dare not miss it.
Yeah, that's so good. I think the temptation during a moment of a relief of pressure is to turn in on ourselves as the church and say, okay, now
Right.
things might be better for us, but it's an opportunity to turn out to the world and
Yeah.
say, hey, Jesus is the answer that you need, and it's like he's been the answer for the last 2,000 years. And he's going to continue being the answer. And I
Yeah.
think that's so good. And that is the hope of America, and that's the hope
Yeah.
of the world. It's
Only
like
one.
the warning signs are very clear, but also it's like what you said with the window. It's like, man, the word of God tells us to be ready in season and out, so
Right.
whether the window's there or not, but when the window's
No
open,
matter
just
what.
take the opportunity,
Yeah,
like
if God is opening the door for us, it's been rolled back a little while back. People were afraid to speak. Well, that's
yeah,
changed. So we got
yeah,
to speak, And the other thing is that with Jehu, he was a window, but we don't know if there was revival, And
right.
after he was gone, we gotta go for it, because that is the whole point, And the Lord has really made it really obvious to us that things are rolling back. But if we don't take the window passes. We'll always preach the gospel, but we've got a moment right now that there can actually be a major revival. But this is what it's all leading to. It's almost like a mystery, because we don't know where Jehu was at. We don't know where he was
Mhm.
at with God, but he was used. So with
Right.
Donald Trump, it's like he's being drawn. He keeps he didn't plan it, and we got to play that this goes to an ultimate thing, which is you can only make America great again if America turns back to the God who made America great in the first place.
So true. So good. So y'all get a copy. There's gonna be links below, like I said, to the
Yeah.
avatar.
Yeah, looks like this, not the movie. Don't get
Not
the
the movie.
movie. Yeah,
Make sure it
looks like
says Jonathan Cahn on it. Make sure it's the official one.
yes, the official one, not a fake one.
Yeah. So Jonathan, there has been this rumor circulating. I've seen it all over the place. I think somebody released a prophecy about it, and then also there's been a lot of different discussions about it, and even ties into signs in the heavens. There's certain things that people are using to try to say and predict essentially this either a rapture date or a second coming date. What are your thoughts on that? Just your initial thoughts.
Yeah. Well, one is first of all, with anything like this. I mean, I don't. This has come up from time to time. We go, okay, the rapture's coming, and it didn't come. And the
Right.
thing is that you got to be really careful. Yes, we're to be aware, obviously, of the signs of the times, and we are to be ready, and looking for the blessed hope for the coming of the Lord. but at the same time, be very wary of date setting. Most of the dates that are set are wrong, overwhelmingly wrong. And there's a lot of reasons why we could say that we'd be very kind of skeptical with this one. And there's a lot of people, as soon as they hear something like this, it's great, that's it. But so my overall is yes, be open, be ready for the Lord to take you at any moment. But the thing is that get on with the work of the Lord. And the thing is that it's not about date setting. God didn't say we're supposed to be doing that. He said we're supposed to be getting on with the Great Commission. That's an overall.
Yeah. So this kind of started, I think originally this actual date was for a 2017 Rapture Day. And then I think it's getting repeated now 8 years later. So they're kind of like, we missed it on that one, but now we're, it's coming back around. So what is this theory behind it that involves the constellation of Virgo? How does that play into it?
Yeah, that what you just said is exactly. Well, there's two things. I mean, one is there's an African pastor who said he had a vision where Jesus told him, either I'm coming back or I'm going to take you on September 23rd of 2025. Now, I don't know when he had it. I don't know if he had a vision. And if he had a vision, that doesn't mean it doesn't, anybody can have a vision.
We're told to test the spirits. We're told to
test every spirit. It doesn't have authority by itself, so that doesn't have to mean anything. Okay, that's one. Secondly, this theory is based on Revelation 12, which talks about the woman and the child and the dragon. And the woman is Israel, the child is Messiah, gives birth, the dragon is Satan, who wars against the woman. Okay, so this person, the theory is that there's a constellation up there called Virgo, and Virgo stands for virgin. So therefore, this constellation came close to another constellation, Leo. Now, the lion is not in Revelation, anyway. But the reason why they thought it was significant is because Leo has 9 stars, and so the woman has 12 stars on her head. So the theory was that Leo has 9 stars plus 3 planets that were there at the time, and so you got 12 stars. Okay, and I mean, that to begin with, and then they said, well, Jupiter is inside, in the constellation, and kind of comes out. So Jupiter is a king, and so that's they're linking that up. And then they said the moon kind of rose, and the woman had a moon at her feet, and the sun. But this is what happens in the sky. Okay, so the thing is, so let me just tell you what I think about it. Okay. First of all, it's to me, it's very convoluted. Number one, I mean, number two, is God going to give a sign of his coming that only like an astronomer is going to be really aware of it? Number one, or an astrologer is going to be aware of it. I mean, that doesn't sound. And then it says Virgo. Well, Revelation 12 doesn't even say virgin, so even that connection's not there. And then because it happened to be near another constellation that had extra stars to fill up the thing, which wasn't 12 stars anyway, it seems very stretched and convoluted. And also, why would God use a vision that has to do with the birth of Jesus? I mean, that part of the vision to talk as a sign for the rapture. Doesn't seem to go either. But then on top of it, there's other problems, because Virgo was a pagan goddess. So is God going to use a pagan goddess to give a sign to the world,
Right.
And then on top of it, it's astrology. I mean, astrology is what sets up these constellations and says their meaning are signs of yet to come. Okay. As that astrology is condemned in the Bible, is God going to use that? So really, to me, Troy, every single thing, I don't really see anything in it. I mean, to begin with. But on top of that, I see a lot to be concerned about, like those things right there. Then add to the fact that it was in 2017, and they said, nothing happened, and they thought it was either going to be the end or the rapture. Never happened. So why did it get switched to here? See, I mean, you got something that didn't happen. It's the 8th anniversary. It happened on September 23rd, I believe, in 2017. So now September 23rd is the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, but and it's the 8th anniversary. But what is that to me? What is that really? Where is the significance here? I mean, Feast of Trumpets, and I said that on the video that I did. Feast of Trumpets may be linked in the future because the theme is trumpets and the end to one of these end time events. But we're not saying this event, and it's to me, there's so little there or nothing there, and it's problematic. What is there?
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing you say is like, especially with Rosh Hashanah, things like that, it's like there, we do see some patterns in scripture of, God kind of doing some of the new covenant things at the same
Yes.
time
Yeah,
that the
absolutely.
old covenant, celebrations are
Absolutely.
taking place. We see that pattern, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can use that to predict the future, and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and
I
to know
mean,
when he's coming.
yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, it is absolutely true that the major events of the first coming of the Lord came on these appointed Hebrew holy days, which makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
Passover, resurrection, Pentecost, and what's left are the autumn holy days, which speak about the end. So there
Hmm.
is something. I believe there's something definitely to that. Trumpets, then the kind of the day of the Lord, and then tabernacles,
Right.
kingdom. But when those happened in the New Testament, they happened once. It was 1 year. It was the same year. One,
Yeah.
2, 3, and then now. So it's so the fact that do I believe that there may very well be, without being dogmatic, a link between the autumn holy days and the coming Lord? Yes, but
Could
that
be.
doesn't mean you
Yeah.
can just say he's going to come in. Okay, it's Rosh Hashanah, so he's coming. I mean,
Yeah. No,
it doesn't
I think
go.
that's a very solid point. I think one thing that's made me sad, and I just like to get your take on this is, I've pushed back a little bit on my channel, not saying I know exactly, when the Lord's coming back or anything like that, and not saying that I know 100% that he's not coming back this month, because I think we're supposed to be ready any day, for his return. And we're not going to know the day or the hour, but when I've pushed back a little bit, I've had people say like, well, they've kind of used the parable of the 10 virgins, where they'll say there's the 5 wise virgins and the 5 foolish, and they'll equate knowing when Christ returns to being in the 5 wise, if that makes sense,
Okay.
and say, if you're not aware of his return, you're going to be cast out or pushed out. What is your response to that? Now that hurts my heart. I'll just say that but what is your response to that notion?
That's interesting. Well, a few things. First of all, they didn't know exactly when the bridegroom was going to come.
Yeah.
The fact is at night, because that's where you have it. It's linked to the Hebrew wedding, and that often happened at night. But they didn't know when. So they didn't know when he was going to come. So the point is that it's the other way around, because it's like having, say, a virgin says, "Oh, he's coming at 7:00." Well, how do you know that? And so I'm ready for 7:00, but then I'm not ready for everything else. I mean, so that doesn't make you more ready because you think
Yeah.
you identified it. It makes you
Right.
more ready when you live in readiness with the oil of the Spirit.
That's the same perspective I had on it, and it kind of saddens me when when we convolute the teachings of Christ to fit something we want to happen. And I have a lot of grace for people that want to
Yeah,
see Jesus return. It's like,
yeah,
man,
that's
I do
good.
too. Like
Yeah,
like I want to see the suffering in this world, and I want to see the reigning of the King. I want to see these things take place, but more than that, Jesus said, "I came to seek and save the lost." I want my heart to align with the Father's heart, which is He doesn't desire anyone to perish.
yeah,
And He's long suffering, and I believe as the church, God calls us to be in that same place.
yeah.
So, what is there anything else that you'd like to say about the whole rapture rumor and
Yeah.
all of
Well,
that?
listen. We have to be. It says wise virgins. We have to be wise. Just because. I mean, what we just went through is the evidence. Like by the way, Troy, when I made that video, I didn't read all the stuff yet. I did, and
Yeah,
I'm going to do another one on it. But the thing is that we have to be wise. We can't just because someone says something. He's coming in September 23rd. It's whoa, wait. And the Bible actually gives the caution. It says, don't be moved by people saying the coming is there. It says, whoa. He won't come until certain things happen. And
yeah,
and think about that. What has to happen? Let's take. I'm not getting into the debate of it. Let's take the pre-tribulation rapture. Okay, and so that you got the most time. You got 7 years. The rapture, then 7 years. Okay. Well, what has to happen? Well, in the middle of that time, you're going to have the Antichrist desecrating the temple. Okay, that's the 3.5 year period. Okay, so you have to have the temple built.
hmm
Now it's 3.5 years. So if it happened now, where's the temple's got to be there for a little bit. There's
yeah,
no way, And the other thing you has to be in place, you have to have a one world, basically global setup. You don't have that. I mean,
yeah.
things are globalizing, but you don't have that. So we got to be wise. I mean, 3.5 years, you got to be. We have to be wise stewards and wise virgins.
hmm Yeah. So essentially, we can see the signs of the time, but we're not seeing some of the specifics that would need to be in place yet.
Right. Right. We
Yeah.
are to see we are in the end times. We know, we see the apostasy, we see Israel, we see a million things,
Mhm.
but this is something we have to be careful about.
Yeah, and I honestly believe that God has power for the church through the word, following the word, but also the Holy Spirit, the presence
Yeah.
of the Holy Spirit, His plan. I believe God has power for us to for lack of a better word, to win in the time and the season that we live in. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking about in the fleshly sense. I'm talking about when it comes to God's plan for our lives. The
Yeah.
purpose that He's laid out for us, the things that He's called us as the global church to do, and the way He's called us to impact the world. There's that plan laid out for us, and God is the one in control of that. God's the one that's going to see that through, and so it's like, I think it is almost an escapism mentality that makes us want to, it's like, to get away for the wrong reasons. Now,
Yeah.
the word does talk about, longing for His return, so it's like, it is like, man, I
Yeah.
would love to see Jesus come back in the next 5
Yeah.
minutes, like that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
And I
But
understand it. I mean, the hope is good. But you got to have wisdom with the hope. And the other thing is that we are in the balance of two things. On one hand, Paul said, I'd rather be with the Lord.
mhm.
But but to live as Messiah, I got things to do.
Yeah,
And so the thing is that if we are here in the end times, we're here in this time, it's because God appointed us to be. He chose
yeah,
it. So remember that. You're appointed for, you have a purpose. If there wasn't a purpose, we wouldn't be here. And that is to
right.
save, and that is to proclaim the Lord. So on one hand, we have to be ready to we just keep to press on. Jesus didn't say that we have to have this figured out. He said,
Mhm.
when they asked him, is it at this time you're gonna restore the kingdom of Israel? He said, it's not for you to know the time that the Father has. You
Wow.
get going and proclaim the gospel to all nations. That's where we are. But the other side is, this is another side. When are you going to meet the Lord? If it's not at that day, it's going to be whenever your heart stops beating. So
Mhm.
the day of the Lord can come at any moment for us. So the other part is, we got to live a life also that we're ready to meet Him. If today was the day, we're ready to meet the Lord. At any moment, this is what it's about. Lord, I'm yours. But because the only thing that separates us from the day of meeting the Lord is one heartbeat.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Thanks for your insight on the rapture rumor and all of that, and the avatar. It's been so good.
Thank you, Troy. It's always a joy. Thank you.